They hear you.
No, just
You don't
maybe
record
you
me.
guys should just try to get. No.
Over to you, sir.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being part of our program today. We hope that you are going to have a wonderful time with us, given the fact that today is International Day of Anti-Corruption, and we are delighted that today we'll be having a conversation that is quite very interesting, and we know that you're all ready to talk about corruption today. But for this year's theme, we are looking at United Against Corruption, Building a Brighter Future Together. This year's theme underscores the vital role of collective action in combating corruption. It highlights the need for integrity, accountability, and transparency throughout society. Corruption is a global issue that hampers development and erodes trust and impacts the most valuable disproportionately. I'm happy that today we have a wonderful speaker in our midst who we are going to introduce shortly. We quickly call on Samuel Ede to introduce our speakers for today. Sorry also that our boss, who was meant to give opening remarks, is not here with us, but Samuel will go ahead and read his bio. We hope that he will join us in the course of this conversation. Samuel, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Over to you.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning to all participants from across the nation. This morning, we have three wonderful speakers who will be doing justice to the theme and the topic we are considering. First on the list is Lee McManus. He is the Public Diplomacy Counselor for the U.S. Mission to Nigeria. He has also been a Public Affairs Officer in Karachi, Pakistan, and prior to that in Minsk, Belarus, during a prolonged period of human rights abuses committed by the Belarusian authoritarian regime against peaceful democratic demonstrators. During his 22-year career with the U.S. Foreign Service, he has also served in Afghanistan, Algeria, Burma, Cameroon, India, Turkmenistan, and Washington, D.C. Lee's home state is Missouri, and his wife is a native of California. She is also a U.S. diplomat. So like Daniel stated, he will be joining us shortly in the course of the event. Second on the list this morning, she is a professor of law in the Department of International Law and Jurisprudence at the University of Abuja. She previously served as the Dean of Faculty of Law at Taraba State University, Jalingo, here in Nigeria. She has attended prestigious institutions such as Harvard and INSEAD, obtaining certificates in senior executive education. Additionally, she has studied at the University of Pretoria and Stellenbosch University in South Africa. As a fellow of International Women's Leadership Forum and a Fulbright research scholar, she is a member of several professional organizations, including FIDA, where she served as secretary and vice chairperson, and the Nigerian Bar Association, where she was the first female secretary. She has published over 40 articles and chapters and authored 3 books, including a textbook on equity and trust. She also judges in the International Human Rights Moot Court competition at the Washington College of Law, America, USA, American University, United States of America. Please join me in welcoming Professor Benedicta Daudu. Professor Benedicta Daudu. She is our second facilitator today. Third on the list, he is a development practitioner specialized in public financial management He has extensive experience in natural resource governance, governance reforms, and public policy. He currently leads the Research and Policy Advisory Unit at BudgIT, where he utilizes his skills as a policy analyst and social advocate to drive federal and subnational governance reforms. His work emphasizes research and evidence-based advocacy to influence public policy, implement public sector reforms, promote accountability, and enhance citizen participation in governance processes. He serves as the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms and conducts the Open Budget Survey, Open Budget Survey Country Research for Nigeria. Additionally, he consults for the European Union and is an active member of the George Ayiti Society and several other prominent think tanks. Outside his professional activities, he enjoys crafting woodwork pieces and passionately follows Arsenal in their pursuit of victory in English Premiership League and UEFA Champions League. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Iniobong Usen, who is our third facilitator this morning. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you so much. Let's put our hands together for for that wonderful introduction. All right, thank you, everyone. We'll quickly move into the conversation for today without wasting much of your time. And let's call on our first speaker for today to actually dive into the conversation. I will go ahead and share her slide. For those of you who want to have a copy, we'll also share it on the platform. Prof, are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Yes. Thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts as we celebrate the International Day against corruption. As we know, corruption is a complex and multifaceted, pervasive phenomenon. It has several causes and effects. It is the abuse of entrusted power, position, or influence for personal gain or benefit, often at the expense and detriment of others, the environment, or the public interest. It is a major obstacle to sustainable economic development because it undermines the principles of fairness, justice, the rule of law, transparency, and accountability. So it creates a society where personal interest takes precedence over the common good. It is estimated that corruption costs the global economy over $3.6 trillion annually. In Nigeria, corruption has deeply permeated both the public and private sectors, affecting governance, economic stability, development, and the quality of life of the citizens. In essence, corruption perpetuates poverty, inequality, and social injustice, thereby undermining the fabric of our societies. The harm in the offense of corruption and other related offenses lies in its debilitating effect on all aspects of life in our society. Corruption occurs in different ways and occurs in various sectors. We find corruption in government, in public institutions, in businesses. The private sectors are not left out, non-governmental organizations, and even in international organizations. Now, there are different forms and different types of corruption. Corruption can take the form of bribery. Embezzlement is a form of corruption. Nepotism, cronyism, extortion, extorting money is corruption. Even if it is as little as 20 naira, it is corruption. Fraud, abuse of power, kickbacks, and several many like that, the corruption, we find in different forms. Now, when we look at the Corruption Perception Index, we discover that it's a gradual increase in the way corruption is perpetuated in looking at Nigeria as a case study. Between 1999 and 2023, we see the increase in the corruption index. As at 1999, Nigeria ranked 98th of the world most corrupt nation, and we scored 16%. As at last year, 2023, we became the 145th nation out of 180 countries, 145th most corrupt nation. We can see the trend. We see that corrupt practices was at its peak in 2016. Going by the graph, if you look at the graph very well, you see that the percentage of corruption against the year. Can you see it from the slides? Yes, okay, all right. So from the year 2001, corrupt practices never went below 10% again. It never went below. It did not decline. It went up on the increase, just keep going up, 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 up. And it was at its climax in 2016 when we scored 28%. So you can see the trajectory on the rise. Some of the corruption cases in the public domain are those of the Malabo oil scandal in 2011, the Stella Oduaka scandal in 2013, the missing oil money, private jet arms scandal, and the MENA pension scam. Those are some of the reported cases. There are very, very many that go unreported. In fact, the unreported ones are much more than the reported ones. Now, if you look at the slide, the graph, the pie chart, you will see the one painted in blue shows you the MENA pension scam. It is the largest scam ever in the history of Nigeria in terms of, with regards to the pensions outfit. $230,000 was embezzled. That is a huge, huge scam. And that scam, because it has to do with pensioners, it has further impoverished the target group, the pensioners. It worsened their condition since 2021. Nothing has been said about that anymore. Now we have many anti-corruption legal frameworks and institutions. Internationally, we have the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. And there's also the African Union Convention Against Corruption at the international level. While at the national level, we have the EFCC, ICPC, NFIU, and the Code of Conduct Bureau. They have been doing wonderful work in that regard. The EFCC, for example, is doing tremendously well, in addition to the ICPC, in the fight against corruption. In the fight against corruption. For example, let us look at a breakdown of the prosecution activities by EFCC, by the EFCC zones for last year, 2023. You see the column of for the zones. There's the Abuja zone, Benin, Enugu, Gombe, Ibadan, Ilorin, Kaduna, Kano, Lagos, Maiduguri, Makurdi, Port Harcourt, Sokoto, and Uyo. And you can see the number of cases that were filed in courts and the number of convictions that have been secured. So this goes to show that the agency is doing quite a lot. And of course, not forgetting the latest discovery by the EFCC, of the over 700 duplexes belonging to some individuals located in Lokogoma, okay? And we were informed that that was gotten from the corrupt practices. That is quite mind-boggling. That is just one location. The Lokogoma one is just one location, okay? Such duplexes may be replicated in other commercial centers, like Port Harcourt, like Lagos. Can you imagine that? From taxpayers' money. It is worrisome. Very, very worrisome. There may be so many others not yet discovered. And even belonging to other people too, who have had the opportunity to serve in government, but have, helped themselves to all of these corrupt practices. So this brings us to the question, what really causes corruption? What is the cause of this corruption? Why is it so much ingrained in our society? Why has it eaten deeply into the fabric of this society? Some of the causes are bad governance and weak institutions, lack of transparency, accountability, and effective oversight. This enables corruption. When we look the other way, we are enabling corruption. Economic inequality and poverty. Some people will tell you they are corrupt because of poverty. Gone are the days when people do their work, and even when you want to tell them thank you, you want to give them a gift, as in maybe you are extending 10 naira, 20 naira, and say thank you for, you tell you, no, I'm only doing my job. Gone are those days. Now, if you do not extend the gratification, he will ask you, he will demand it and say, you think nothing goes for nothing. That is how low we have gone in this society. So the economic inequality and poverty, limited access to resources and opportunities, this creates a conducive environment for corruption to thrive. Another cause of corruption is greed. Greed. Insatiable desire to acquire material wealth, much more than you need, much more than you require. You just want to amass, just gather, whether you need it or not. To your fourth generation of unborn babies, you don't mind. You accumulate for them. It is so sad. So sad. And of course, for this 700 plus duplexes that we are discovered, it can only be greed that makes somebody want to acquire that. Nothing else but greed. Okay? So we look at the consequences of corruption. What are those consequences? The consequences of corruption are far-reaching and devastating. It undermines trust and confidence in leaders and institutions. It erodes the rule of law by undercutting governmental and other societal institutions. It diminishes respect for human rights, limits and hinders opportunities for economic growth and development. It also discourages investors and stifles innovation. It undermines public service delivery and negatively impacts on the citizens. Corruption exacerbates socioeconomic inequality and perpetuates poverty. It is a major impediment to good governance. In specifics, the consequences of corruption, the economic consequences, social consequences, environmental consequences, and political consequences are there outlined for you. For economic consequences, when funds are misappropriated, siphoned, or laundered into foreign bank accounts, or used to acquire choice properties abroad, this diversion of funds cripples infrastructure projects, education, healthcare, and other critical sectors, perpetuating poverty, unemployment, and underdevelopment. We have people who have been in government and have stashed away taxpayers' money into Swiss accounts, several foreign accounts. The monies are there. While we need the money for development in Nigeria. Some acquire choice properties abroad, they don't live in it. Some people have houses in different states in a country, they don't stay in them. They come back to Nigeria and stay. In a year, they may visit that country only once. They don't stay there, but they are paying ground rents for those houses abroad. And the cost of ground rent there can build secondary schools and equip our hospitals in Nigeria. Cost of ground rents alone abroad. We look at the social consequences. Corruption erodes trust in institutions, perpetuates a cycle of disenfranchisement, leading to widespread disillusionment among citizens and heightening social unrest, particularly among marginalized communities. The social consequence is what makes, particularly the youth, their blood is always hot. Little things, they get angry. They're angry at the society. They're not happy at what is happening. Environmental consequences are also there, okay, as well as political consequences. Of course, the political consequences, it weakens institutions. Bad governance stems from corruption, leading to instability and inefficiency. Electoral fraud and lack of accountability further undermines democracy, okay? Then we look at the strategies. What are those strategies now that can help us to curb corruption in order for us to build a brighter future together? One of them will be to foster a culture of transparency and accountability. In that sense, we need to empower and further strengthen our anti-corruption laws and institutions. For example, we need to appreciate the efforts of our anti-corruption agencies. It may seem as if they're not working, but the reality, the truth is that they are indeed working. They are working. I have showed you some of the cases that they have in court at their zonal level. So they are indeed working. Same with ICPC, same with the Code of Conduct Bureau. They are all working. So we need to appreciate their efforts, and help them to work better so that we can have continuous effective implementation and enforcement, okay, of these institutions. There's also the need to encourage e-governance platform for transparency in public procurement and budgeting, and also to use blockchain technology to track public funds, monitor public projects and spending in order to reduce embezzlement, promote transparency, accountability, and integrity. And of course, we have we have civil society organizations, okay, which we also need to strengthen and support. For example, SERAP is doing a wonderful work out there. SERAP, they're always in courts, bringing out information, conscientizing the populace, conscientizing and enlightening Nigerians on the goings on, what government is doing. SERAP promotes transparency, they promote accountability, okay? And they are always working and challenging corruption, poverty, inequality, and discrimination. They do a lot of work. Same with BudgIT. They investigate government spending and all of that. So there are several NGOs who are doing marvelous work in the area of corruption. We need to also support them and appreciate their efforts. Again, in order to curb corruption further, we need to promote public awareness, embark on reorientation, training and capacity building of law enforcement personnel, the police, civil defense, all of them. There is need for them to change their mindsets. There's need for reorientation, for them to understand that corrupt tendencies does not pay, as well as educating the citizens and promoting anti-corruption values in our schools. Catch them young. We need to start indoctrinating our young children to appreciate the value of hard work and not wanting to get rich quick. You know, the youth of these days, they don't even believe in hard work anymore. Okay, and that is why they involve themselves in all manner of scams and Yahoo practices, which is not good. So we need to reorient them and make them see the value in, you know, hard work. Then there's also the issue of collaboration and cooperation between national and international anti-corruption agencies. We need to strengthen, you know, cross-border collaboration and foster global partnerships and share best practices, coordinate efforts, and support countries in their anti-corruption endeavors. There's need to strengthen cross-border collaboration. Nigerians that will steal money from Nigeria and run away to another country, if there's cross-border collaboration, our government can talk to the government, the other governments, and say, extradite Mr. S or Miss B back to Nigeria to come and answer questions, you know, on, for whatever reason, corruption or whatever the person must have done. So people can, so that people will not just commit crimes here and get away with it. Then there's also the need to support whistleblower protection and witness protection programs. This will ensure that individuals who report genuine and authentic corrupt activities are protected from retaliation and reprisal. Some time ago, the whistleblowing thing was really like on the front burner in Nigeria. Report corrupt persons and you get whatever protection and all that. There is need for us to protect whistleblowers. It was as a result of whistleblowing that some of these corruption cases came to the fore. People never knew about it. However, when the whistleblowers come up with their information, it is important to investigate and be certain that the information are accurate. So the law enforcement agents need to do their due diligence by investigating first before they now go into action. So now we want to look at the role of youths in fighting corruption. You see, the youth that we have these days, we need to really, we need to conscientize them. It's important that, because they already have a mindset. As I said earlier on, they don't believe in hard work anymore. They don't even want to go to school. As long as they can speak English, that is sufficient for them. Many of them don't want to, you know, engage in hard work. They want to just get rich overnight. The processes of getting to the top is no longer appealing to them anymore. You go to school, study, work for a number of years, rise up the ladder. No, that is a long way. What is the shortcut to getting rich? And that is why they go into cyber crimes. They think that works for them, it's better. A 5-year-old child, a 7-year-old child, ask the child, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a Yahoo boy. I've heard that. Yes. They say so. I want to do Yahoo. Or I want to be a politician. That's another way to get rich quick. We need to change their orientation. Okay. So the youths need to be convinced about the negative consequences of corruption and be willing to fight the scourge. So this can be achieved through education, technology, activism, and youth-led initiative. We also have social media influencers, content creators, skit makers. Youth are involved in that. They can use that to talk about the values in the society. So the strategies to unite against corruption, collaborative efforts, inclusive governance, ethical leadership. The advantages of building a brighter future together is for economic growth, because a society in which the corruption index is brought to a minimum will attract investors, create jobs, and ensure efficient use of resources. There's also the social development aspect. In terms of eliminating corruption, it will lead to better public service, to reduce poverty and improve quality of life. A society that values accountability will foster trust and cohesion among its citizens. Also, there will be global recognition. A corrupt-free nation would enhance its reputation among the Community of Nations, strengthening its position as a leader, particularly for Nigeria, as a leader in Africa and a reliable partner in global affairs. So in conclusion, we discovered that corruption is a formidable malignant challenge, but it is not insurmountable. While insatiable wants and human greed are obviously drivers of corruption, the inability to hand out appropriate penalties to corrupt individuals, often due to administrative and bureaucratic bottlenecks, constitute clogs in the wheels of the fight against corruption. However, by uniting against corruption and fostering a culture of transparency, accountability, and integrity, we can reclaim our nation's potential and ensure a brighter future for generations to come. Consequently, a collective and multifaceted approach is necessary to combat corruption effectively. So we call on every citizen, young or old. We have a role to play in this fight, whether by demanding accountability, upholding integrity, or actively participating in governance. In essence, fighting corruption demands commitment and resilience. And in order to change the negative narrative, government must foster the political will to lead by example and do the needful in eradicating corruption at all levels and reposition the country for optimum growth and sustainable development. The commitment should be transformed into action so that together we can create zero tolerance for corruption, build a society founded on trust, integrity, transparency, accountability, and forge a brighter, more prosperous future. The time to act is now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Let's put our hands together here for her, please. All right, while she was making her presentation, Lee walked in. He's to give us the opening remarks for this event for today. So we'll give him a chance to do that right away before we call on our second speaker. Lee, over to you now, please.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I was tardy. Monday mornings, I had a lot of meetings, but I carved out time, even though all my meetings ran late. I carved out time to come for this because this is such a very important topic to me as a citizen of a democracy in the United States, as you are citizens of a democracy here in Nigeria. So my formal remarks are the following. December 9th is, as you know, International Anti-Corruption Day. And I am honored to welcome you and to have even listened to the first presentation, or the tail end of the first presentation, which I know every country has its own context and its own approach and needs for combating the scourge of corruption in one's country. So the theme of this event and the other speakers to follow are United Against Corruption, Building a Brighter Future Together. I really firmly and authentically believe that that's the crux of it. Is there's really the fighting corruption and overcoming it with all sorts of checks and balances is really the only way to have a more equitable future for everyone. And today we come together to discuss the challenges posed by corruption and reaffirm our collective commitment to combating it and fostering a culture of integrity, accountability, and transparency. Corruption, as was mentioned by the first speaker, it really does undermine trust in institutions. It erodes the social fabric and stifles opportunities for growth and innovation. Its impact is far-reaching, affecting economies, affecting governance, and also affects the most vulnerable members of our societies. Today's gathering serves as a reminder of the power of unity and collaboration in addressing this pervasive issue, not just in Nigeria, but around the world, even in the United States. As we embark on today's discussions, or continue, I should say, let us reflect on the role each of us plays in this fight, whether as individuals, as organizations, or representatives of nations. Together we can and we will create a future where integrity drives progress and fairness becomes the foundation of our collective prosperity. And I encourage each of you online here at the American Center, you are welcome in Abuja, and those across Nigeria in our American spaces that have gathered to listen to these expert speakers today. I encourage each of you to actively participate, share your ideas, and explore innovative solutions to the challenges we face. And together we can demonstrate that united action against corruption is an ideal and a tangible pathway to a brighter and more equitable future. And I'll just end on by sharing maybe with some of the younger members in the audience, a very famous historical example from the United States centered around corruption, and that was the impeachment of President Richard Milhous Nixon. And it's widely known as Watergate. So not to get into the history of it, you can go and watch movies about it, you can watch documentaries about it, read about it. It all started with a journalist asking questions and starting to investigate. And he unraveled a whole scandal that went all the way up to the most powerful person in my government, the president of that time, Richard Nixon. And it was something that led to his own resignation because the evidence was just insurmountable of what he did in terms of having a slush fund, spying on his political opponents, and doing all sorts of political tricks like that. And that's something that those kinds of actions at the highest level or at the lowest level of any government bureaucrat, it has no place in a democracy so that these ideals that I just talked about can be upheld. So with that, I will hand it back over to Aundawana. I want to thank you again for coming, and particularly your presentation and those to come, so that we can talk together how we can collectively look for ways as citizens to get involved to counter and overcome corruption once and for all. And even when it is overcome, to keep a close eagle eye on it, because it can always creep back in. So thank you so much, and I wish you all the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Lee. Thank you so much. Let's put our hands together again for Lee. That was a wonderful opening remarks. Thank you so much for your encouragement. Yes, let's move on to our next speaker for today. Is Mr. Usen there?
Can you use your own space? You can't hear him. We can't hear him nor see him.
Good morning, everyone. Apologies. I think the music in this hall. Can you hear me now?
The audio is very bad. Can we ask?
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
The
correct.
audio is not. Josephine, can they use your space?
Yeah. Yeah, good morning. Please confirm you can hear me clearly now.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to be here. You would permit me a bit, not as energetic as I would often be. I'm a little bit under the weather, but because of how important this topic is, I still have to make out time to come. But I believe Josephine tried to set me up, because who comes after a professor of law and a seasoned diplomat, on an issue of corruption? But if you look at the history of corruption in Nigeria, I mean, it's long, it's complex, multifaceted, it takes different forms. It predates, the our independence era, from the colonial era to the post-independence era. We've been dealing with the cost of corruption. If a journey that is supposed to take you 5 to 6 hours from somewhere in Lagos to somewhere in Uyo is taking you between 10 to 15 hours, because the roads are bad as a result of the fact that funds that had been allocated to fixing those roads have been embezzled. That's a cost of corruption we are dealing with. If you go to a hospital and, drugs that you are supposed to, have access to, the equipment you're supposed to have access to, are not available, and people are dying of preventable diseases, that's the cost of corruption we're dealing with. Corruption is the reason why a promising doctor would, die from a faulty lift in a teaching hospital and would have a life cut short just because somebody who was supposed to fix that lift and funds had been appropriated for fixing it decided to, embezzle such funds. Corruption is the reason why medical equipment that have been appropriated for and monies disbursed are not delivered to a hospital. I mean, I visited a hospital somewhere in Akwa Ibom, and equipment, such as incubators, dialysis machines that had been bought as part of a politician's constituency project were sitting somewhere in a store because the politician had planned that those equipment would be delivered and not installed. And so while his constituents are suffering from kidney diseases, premature babies are dying because there are no incubators, those equipments are sitting in a store to be moved, to a private facility owned by that politician or his or her crony. So every day we live with these costs of corruption. And the professor had dimensioned it. There's the economic cost, there's the social cost, there's the political cost, there's the institutional cost, and there's the long-term development cost of corruption. If I come to the economic cost of corruption, as the case may be, we see it reflecting how funds that have been allocated to solve a myriad of our challenges are misappropriated or outrightly stolen. Whether it's with the $43 million that was found in a private apartment somewhere, or in the words of dollars found in somebody's farm somewhere in Kaduna, or in somebody's, words of dollars found in somebody's sockaway that was washed away by floods. Whether it's in the roads that funds have been allocated to and spent that were supposed to last for 10 years, but 3 months later, those roads are broken and people die from accidents on those roads. Whether it's from those roads that are supposed to have street lights that are supposed to be tarred, but then you have giant potholes on those roads and no street lights for you to be able to even see the potholes to dodge those potholes. Whether it's for kids who come from resource-rich communities somewhere in the Niger Delta that is supposed to benefit from the wealth, the hydrocarbon resource wealth, like any child in Dubai or in Texas or in Kuwait would enjoy, but does not have access to potable drinking water, does not have access to a school that has chairs where you can take education, does not have access to a facility, a health facility to take treatment for the ailments caused by the operations of the oil and gas companies operating in their domain, whether it's as a result of the health challenges caused by the oil spills in those communities or gas flared by those companies, and then the regulators who are supposed to monitor the gas flare or the oil spills have decided not to do their job and take bribes. So every day we live with the cost of this corruption. Whether it's with regards to how global capital that is looking for where it can be appreciated and appreciate would not come in because companies feel that for them to be able to operate in your domain, they have to pay bribes to every public official to be able to get permits and to be able to do business. And so that foreign capital that would have come in and that business setup that would have employed your people, and then those people that have been able to live meaningful lives, that capital is not coming in. If you come to the social costs, I had already talked extensively on it. But even the brain drain, if you look at our health sector, there are some local governments in this country that do not have a single doctor manning the health centers in that local government, because the doctors who were trained here are not able to stay because they are not paid well, the conditions for service are not good enough. And so they leave to seek better lives elsewhere. And our people cannot have access to quality healthcare. Is it tech? A lot of us have been experiencing issues with the financial services for almost 4 months now for the tier 1 banks, and they will tell you that that's because for a lot of the tech experts that used to work with them, they have sought for better lives elsewhere. And so we do not have access to very good financial services, as the case may be. Businesses are suffering. Businesses cannot grow because the seamless nature that technology brings to financial services is one that seems to pervade us, recently. When it comes to politics, with regards to how we administer our elections, we've seen how for just 5,000 naira or even 1,000 naira, people sell their votes. And for the next 4 years, politicians do not, interact with them until the next election. And so every day we live with the cost of corruption. But then can we preclude ourselves from the kind of society that we have created for ourselves? The answer is no. We are all culpable. Whether it's in the university where you are supposed to sit, study for your exams and write your exams, but you decide to sort because it's an easy way to pass, or whether it's with the policeman or the traffic warden, when you break a traffic offense, instead of you to pay the government the fine that is due it, you decide to offer bribe to that policeman. We are all culpable in forming the society that we have, that we live in today. Whether it's deciding to charge for that vote that you would cast at the ballot, with the guys that, oh, the politicians are all the same, so let me collect the one I can, get now, and and then they move on with how they want to govern society. It's none of my business. It is your business, because there's a cost for this corruption. And so when corruption is discussed, let us not, assume that we are not culpable or we have not played a role in how the Nigerian society, exists as it is today. But then what do we do as youths? There's a role for us to play in correcting the society. But before I even get into that, the professor who came before me had spoken to, how people do not, see the need for delayed gratification. How young people these days just want to make it quick. But we didn't just get there, accidentally. I tell people that for young people nowadays, they do not see the need for delayed gratification. And that's because there seems to be no reward system. If you have a parent who has worked in the civil service, they have given 35 years to their service, and then they retire, it takes them a while to get their gratuity, to get their pension. And so after giving 35 years to service, your country doesn't reward you for service. Now, a child who grows up in that home, what do you expect that child to grow up with? How do we reward students who graduate with excellent grades? A youth goes to the BB Nigeria show, and he comes back with $100,000 or 100 million naira as a gift prize. Somebody finishes with a 5.0 in a university, and he gets 100,000 naira. That youth who leaves the BB Nigeria show and wins is the person on our billboards across the country. Meanwhile, nobody knows that brilliant student who finished with a 5.0. So we are all culpable in the society that we have created for ourselves. There is no reward for good behavior and there's no punishment for bad behavior. But what role do we have as youths? Universe has blessed us with social media, where digital activism, digital awareness has led to, social change in a lot of societies. And I'll pick the NSAS protest as one that was against police brutality, that started somewhere in a city in Lagos, and then it permeated the entire country. And what was the aftermath of that? That particular police unit that was responsible for the police brutality was disbanded. Until date, that unit has not been, brought back into force. So social media has provided a medium for citizens to collectively ask for change. But how do we even use that medium? What tickles our fancy on social media? What do we lend our voices to? Whenever there's a trend on social media, whether it's on TikTok, on Twitter, that has to do with whether comedy or a trending song, you see the traction that it takes. But when organizations like BudgIT or Serap unearth instances of corruption, how many youths interact with these tweets or with these posts to ask questions? And so it tells you what is important to the average youth. If you check your posts, the last 100 posts that you have posted on your different social media platforms, how many of those posts have spoken to the issues that we are confronting as a nation and how collectively we can contribute to correcting these ills, that our society is bedeviled with? So we are all culpable. We are not using the platforms that have been available to us to create the change that we so desire. And so digital activism, digital awareness is one area where I think the youth have a lot of role to play. Look at what happened in Kenya with the tax bills. And look at how the youth, drove the conversation and drove, government action in that regard. When it comes to participation, citizens' participation, how well do we participate with elections? If you see the turnout results, a lot of youths would rather prefer to sit in their houses than come out to vote. And then we allow people who do not have as much information as us, the youth, who are more educated, to now decide the political leaders that assume offices and make decisions on our behalf. So how do we engage the political process? How do we get involved? This is another area where I think the youth, could be more active with regards to how it participates in elections, whether it's by joining a political party, whether it's by mobilizing citizens to get involved in the process, get registered, to get voted, whether it's by using our platforms to amplify some of the messages, put out there by political parties so that people can equally make informed decisions with regards to how they select their leaders. The youth has also been blessed with that energy, the zest, that innovative spirit and drive. What are the kinds of applications, digital applications that we are creating to be able to contribute to the change that we desire? The professor had spoken to, the good work that some organizations are doing to be able to contribute to the change that we all desire. And BudgIT, the organization I work for, has created a number of civic tech products, that citizens, civil society, organizations, the private sector can engage to be able to contribute to this change that we so desire. If you look at what BudgIT is doing with Tracker, by tracking government spending on the ground to ensure that what government says it had spent in building a school, in building a road, in building a primary healthcare center reflects on the ground. And we have testimonies to this effect. In one community in Sokoto, where people were taking treatments or drips under a tree, with the drips hanging on the branch of a tree, the tracking officer went into that community, took the testimonies of the community members, took pictures, and then put it on put it out there on social media. And in less than 2 weeks, the contractor who had, for 4 years in a row, taking, monies for the implementation of that project, went back to site, and in less than 2 months, that primary healthcare center was back up equipped and people taking, treatments in that facility. If you look at the GovSpend platform also that was developed by BudgIT, that puts out payments to contractors, 5 million naira and above, investigative journalists have used that data from that platform, to carry on with their data journalism on unearthed instances of corruption. And there are cases that are currently sitting with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to prosecute such cases. If you look at organizations like Hope Behind Bars as well, that are creating innovative solutions to help persons who have, lacked access to justice, as the case may be, or you look at Citizens Gavel that have created AI solutions to provide legal assistance to persons who need them. They are young people, who stand as examples, for persons who are providing, solutions or contributing to this social change that we so desire. But then we need to do this collectively. We cannot do this in isolation, because unity, sort of amplifies the individual efforts of all of us, and it builds, that collective strength that is greater than the sum of all its parts. So I call all of us to action today to get involved, get interested, because we all have a role to play in addressing the corruption that has pervaded the Nigerian society. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Usen. Let's put hands together again for him. That was a wonderful presentation from Mr. Usen. We're happy with our presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, can you quickly indicate if you have questions? You can use the virtual hand for those of you that want to speak from your respective spaces. Use a virtual hand. You can also share your question in the chat box, and we can actually read it to our speakers for today. All right. We'll move ahead with the question. I think my first question will actually go to the prof. Prof, are you there? Prof, do you sincerely believe that the fight against corruption can be won? My question is, do you sincerely think that the fight against corruption can be won?
Yeah, hello, Daniel. I think Abuja is disconnected.
Yeah, sorry about that, Prof. We'll take that again. Just a moment.
Okay, there, yeah.
They were muted. They have just been unmuted. Prof, sir, can you take that again?
Okay, yes. So I believe that. Can you hear us now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. All right. So yeah, I believe that the fight against corruption can be won, okay, if we change our mindsets, we change our orientation, you know, more enlightenment campaigns are carried out by non-governmental organizations, and if we see the effort by government to really fight corruption. If our leaders are sincere, we see that our leaders are leading by example. Somebody does not see his appointment into a political office as a ticket to get rich quick. Those are the things that people don't want to see. So when we see that somebody is in government for 4 years or occupies an office for 4 or 5 years, and he goes there to serve, not to enrich himself or herself, those are the things that will make people change their mindset about corruption. People steal money and they come and tell you, okay, I'm ready to do plea bargain. Steal 60 billion and you're willing to forfeit 40 or 30 million or billion and keep the rest to yourself as long as you forfeit something. It should be that in addition to that plea bargain, the person must face the full wrath of the law. What is the sentence? The court must play its role properly. So when we see that those who engage in corrupt practices do not get away with it, there will be a ray of hope. But as long as, people commit these offenses, corruption practices, and get away with it, then it will be difficult for us to win the war. If somebody is given a contract and he does not, we probably give him mobilization fee, he does not do the contract, he collects money, and he's not brought to book, then how can we fight it? But when we see that examples are made, people are brought to book, we see that name and shame then there can be hope for us to have to fight this corruption and make progress in terms of that. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Prof. Mr. Usen, do you agree with Prof?
I mean, I agree. The fight against corruption is not a sprint, right? It's a marathon. I don't know that there's any country in the world where corruption has been completely eliminated, right? But then in a lot of countries where things work, it's been brought to the barest minimum, meaning that institutions must work. Nations should build strong institutions. In a country like Nigeria, our consequence management regime is entirely weak or non-existent. And this has even permeated the judiciary to the point where the judiciary that used to be the last hope of the common man is seemingly these days being the lost hope of the common man. Because while the rich and powerful expeditiously get judgment, I mean, people would approach the courts today and get ex parte orders before the end of the day, while people are waiting in court, are waiting trial for 7 years for petty theft. You cannot have justice in such an environment, and then you can't have that society free of corruption. And so we need to take consequence management very seriously in this country, and it has to happen across board, across different sectors. But yes, I do agree with her, that it's something that can be brought to the barest minimum if the institutions of state that are supposed to, deliver consequences for bad behavior, do their job.
Thank you so much for that wonderful contribution. All right, let's go to Yola. Yola, please unmute yourself and speak. Window on America, Yola. Are you there? Sorry, we can't hear you.
My question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. It's better now.
All right. My question goes to Mr. Iniobong. You mentioned some softwares that, or some applications that the organization he works with have developed. So I will actually want him to reiterate and press more on those so that we as youth, we can maximize those applications. Thank you.
All right, thank you
Okay.
for sharing that. Usen, did you get his question?
Yes, I did. Okay, yeah, thank you. Yes, I'll speak to maybe about 3 of them. We have a couple of them. I'll start with the GovSpend. So the GovSpend is a platform that crawls data from the Open Treasury portal owned by the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. Now, what happens on that portal is that for payments made to contractors, 5 million naira and above, the details of those payments are published on that Open Treasury portal. But it's published in a format that is not user-friendly. The portal experiences a lot of downtime. Sometimes you can't even access the portal. And so BudgIT developed that the GovSpend to crawl the data from that Open Treasury portal, clean it and present it in a way that the average citizen can use. So for instance, if you want to see the payments, all the payments that the Ministry of Health has made this year, for instance, if you go to the Open Treasury portal, you would see the payments, who the recipients of the payments were, the sum, how, and for what purpose the payment was made. Now, I'll give you a testimony of how an investigative journalist used that data to unearth an instance of corruption. So using data from the GovSpend data, the journalist was able to track that payment to a particular payment to a company that was registered as a salon, but got payments for constructing a road. So that's how crude, the corruption that happens in Nigeria is. If I take you to another civic tech tool that BudgIT has developed, which is called the Primary Healthcare Accountability Tracker. What did we try to do with that platform? We had mapped out certain primary healthcare facilities in about 5 states. So we took stock of the state of the facilities, the services available in those facilities, the human personnel for health in those facilities, the equipment, the drug supply, laboratory supply, and all of that in those facilities. And then we warehouse them on a platform. Now, when the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency got wind of it, they called us in to partner with them, gave us more information on the facilities with regards to what the facilities receive from the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, and how the fund is utilized in those facilities. So what the platform helps both citizens and government do is to identify what the needs, the specific needs of those facilities are, so that the funds coming from the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund would go directly to those needs. Because there have been instances where the managers of those facilities do not prioritize the needs of those facilities. But having the state of those facilities in public domain now puts the managers of those facilities under pressure to utilize the funds that are coming to those facilities to address the specific needs of those facilities. What it also helps, people do, and some philanthropic organizations also do, is that you can see the specific needs of facilities that you want to invest in, and then invest in those facilities. It also allows citizens give feedback on the kind of services that they receive from those facilities. So we are working with the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency on scaling that particular project to ensure that the over 40,000 primary healthcare facilities that we have across the length and breadth of the country are clearly mapped and catered to, as the case may be. If I come to the last product, which is the tracker, tracker is one of the flagship products of BudgIT. It started out as an on the ground, boots on the ground kind of movement, where we had tracking officers in the 36 states across the federation, including the FCT, who would take budget data and then track government projects on the ground and then give feedback on the state of those projects. But we moved from that into an online-based platform where the status of projects, the budget really releases to those projects, and then the citizens' feedback of those projects, both on the supply and the demand side, are all warehoused on that platform. There's a web-based platform, and there's also a mobile application that citizens can download and then have access to the different government projects at the federal government level that government has implemented or have allocated resources to, so that together we can begin to track how government utilizes the lean resources available to it to addressing the myriad of the challenges confronting us.
Thank you so much for sharing. Now let's go to American Center Library in Lagos. American Center, please unmute yourself and speak. American Center Lagos.
And lastly, we are very much grateful for the opportunity given to us to listen to the talk and that we enlightened. Something I want to ask is very particular quotation.
Sorry, that audio, that's so sorry to stop you. The audio is very, very bad. That audio, we can't hear you at all. Can you type it in? And so sorry, that audio is very bad. And we're recording. So please, either you use another audio and then so that we can listen to you. Or try it again now.
Let him use mine and see. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We can hear you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. We are very so much grateful for the opportunity given to us to listen to the talk. Likewise, to benefit from the orientation. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Okay. The concern I'm having here is that there's a particular quotation that when the life is full of evil, not because of those who perpetrate the evil, but because of those who can stop the evil from being done, that prefer to sit down and allow this evil to perpetrate to detriment the innocent citizens. The aspect I'm looking at is from the both speaker. I think sometimes our religious leaders also have work to do. Both our fathers, pastors, and missionaries. Sometimes people in the past, they go to them and they look onto them that they should talk about all those evils that are treating our innocent citizens. But now, most of all those people also, they are also corrupted. So that means those of us who are very at the grassroots here, so that means you don't have any hope. So please, to the professor and to our man here in Lagos, I don't know, what do you think the masses can do as far as the fact of our religious leaders being also corrupted? And people don't even want to listen to them at all, because when a particular pastor is being reported and a particular imam is being reported, if such a person gives a sermon, so people will just, will not take his word as anything. So I think that is even one of the reasons corruption is growing and growing and growing day in, day out in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Prof, did you hear her? Okay. Please, can you make American Center Abuja co-host? The name is US Embassy Abuja.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for your question. With regards to what can we do, when religious leaders are corrupt, are corrupted, that's your question. Well, what I'm going to say is that, God, either you're a Christian or a Muslim, there's one thing we believe, that God has given us free will. And we know the distinction, we know the difference between good and evil. You don't need to be a religious person to know that. When you are doing something right, you know it is right. When you're doing something wrong, definitely, certainly, you know that what you're doing is wrong. You need no religious person, a clergy, to spell it out for you. So when we shouldn't look at this, they are human beings too. The clergy, the Christians or Muslims, they are human beings. They are fallible. They can make mistakes, okay? So don't look at them. Do as they say. What do they say? They preach the word of God in churches and in mosques. They preach the word of God. They use the Bible, they use the Quran to preach. So do as they say. Do not do as they do. Don't look at their character. Don't look at the bad things that they do. Turn your ear, your eyes, and everything. Hear no evil. See no evil. Don't look into that direction. But follow the right path, what they advise you to do, what they preach to you to do. And then you're not going to church or to mosque because of these people. You're not. Salvation is a personal race. It is between you and your creator. It is between you and who, the deity that you believe in. Okay? For people who are not, who are atheists, for instance, they do the right thing because of what? They believe in that principle. They are principled enough to know that what I'm doing is right or wrong. And so you should be guided by that. Do not go in the path of, don't be guided by some misguided elements in the name of religion. You can change, you can be the change agent. Okay, you can be the change agent. When you as the led, you are doing the right thing, your leader will know that. In fact, your leader will have to, he will draw reverse and change. So please, I'll say that don't bother yourself with what they do. Of course, there are bad eggs amongst them, but there are still some good ones too. Okay, there are still some good ones who we want to emulate, who serve to us as mentors. We like their lifestyle, we like what they do, you understand? And those are the people that should motivate you. Don't look at those that do not motivate you. Just as Mahatma Gandhi said, I like your Christ, but I don't like you Christians. Why would he say that? Because we Christians, we don't behave Christ-like. Okay, so don't look at what they do, don't look at their actions. But then you just do the right thing. As I said, there are some good ones. There are some good ones, they're not all bad. Okay, so when you see the good ones, emulate them. Let those ones be your mentors. Let those ones be the ones, that will motivate you to do the right thing. I hope I've answered your question. Hello?
Yes, thank you so much. All right, let's go to Kano quickly. Can you please unmute and ask your question?
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Ask your question.
Yes. I'm Usman Mohammed from America. Thank you, Professor, for this wonderful presentation. My question is, I was wondering if I can have a definition of corruption. Is it dishonesty or fraudulent conduct for those who empower? Because in our country here in Nigeria, corruption is like entrenched. And there's an institution being established to fight the corruption. But similarly, the corruption is fighting back. So what are the solution or suggestion that you give to us to find this patient up for years? Thank you very much.
For your question, you see there is no universally acceptable definition of corruption. Okay.
We can hear you.
Attention to emergency. That is a test of the emergency alarm systems. I say again.
Okay. So can you hear me now?
Just a moment, Prof. All right, sorry about the alarm. All right, Prof, you can go ahead now.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Windows, move into a covered position.
Yes, we can hear you. Can hear you.
So give a friend instruction. One or so. The next sound you will hear
Prof, just wait a moment, yeah.
Sound.
That's it.
Sorry, in that breaking transmission. Prof, over to you now.
Okay, so you want a definition of corruption, and I'm saying that there is no universally acceptable definition of that word of corruption. Okay, because corruption is complex. Okay, it is complex. It has several causes and effects, and corruption takes different forms and contexts, different forms. Okay, so you cannot have a universally acceptable definition of corruption. However, one thing, there's a bottom line to that, which is that what? Corruption is the abuse of power for private gain. Okay, you're engaged in corrupt practices for your selfish interests, for private gain. That is the bottom line about it. Okay, so I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Prof. All right, let's go to Union America Makodi. Then we'll go to Ibadan. Makodi, unmute and ask your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I really appreciate Prof. presentation. But my question goes like this. Well, I agree that EFCC have done a very good job in tackling corruption in Nigeria. But I want to ask if there's any non-record of what this recovered money or infrastructures have been used for, because it's sounding like fighting corruption for another corruption. So I want to know if or what these money and infrastructures that have been recovered, what are they used for?
Yes, you see, as I said, EFCC, ICPC, all these anti-corruption agencies, they are working. They are indeed working. We may not be seeing it, but they are working, okay? And then they have a database of cases, of their activities. They have a database of that. Now, for the monies that they have recovered, I don't work for EFCC. I'll not be able to speak for a fact, you know, or give you data or information in that regard. The monies you have recovered, how far so far? What have you done with it? What has happened to the money? I'm not in a position to elucidate on that. However, I'm sure if you find out from them, they'll be able to tell you what they have been able to do with the monies recovered. Most of these monies recovered, it goes back to government coffers. It cannot remain with EFCC. Okay, they have to plow it back into government, and government will plow it back into the economy. Okay, they will now use it to probably to repair roads. Okay, into education. Like TED Fund is funded by government. Okay, so monies will be plowed into. They know how they distribute these resources. I'm not going to speak for them, and if indeed I cannot even speak for them. But I know that if you find out from them, they'll be able to give you better information, much more than I can supply now. Thank you.
Yes, I think the organization that Usen works with been conducting research along those areas. Usen might have something to add.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, ideally recoveries should be remitted back into the Consolidated Revenue Fund of government, because ideally, by the appropriation law, you cannot spend any money that has not been appropriated for. So whatever government spends on is money that has been, already been appropriated. So when recoveries are made, those funds are remitted to the central pool, which will now form part of government, revenue pool to implement their budget. But I also know that there have been instances where direct disbursements have been made to specific intervention projects or programs. I remember there was a time the Abacha loot, a part of it was geared towards the conditional cash transfer program as well. So there are some instances where some of the loot is directed to some of those intervention programs. Is it best practice? I don't think so, because one of the principles of budgeting is that anything government spends on must be appropriated. So if your National Assembly or your State House of Assembly has not appropriated any fund for any spending activity of government, it goes against, one of the core principles of budgeting. So that's all I can say concerning this.
Thank you so much, Usen. All right, let's go to Ibadan. Ibadan, please unmute and ask your question.
Okay, thank you. So my question is, you mentioned how we as citizens on our own level, we also contribute to corruption, and we also have our own kind of corruption. So how would you recommend that we as citizens can stop that type of corruption at our own small or smaller scale?
Usen, do you want to take that?
Yes. I mean, we need a complete attitudinal change. We need to, our value system almost doesn't exist anymore. And I mean, it plays out in different sectors of society. I know the professor had responded to one question around the role that religious leaders have to play. It would seem that as a society, we have come to demonize the poor. It plays out in the kind of languages we use, or how we treat the poor or the poorest amongst us. I mean, there's a popular song. They would say, "If you don't get money, hide your face." The truth is, the poor would never leave us. The bulk of the population of the world would continue to remain poor, because that's how society is everywhere in the world. So we cannot treat the poor or poor people without dignity, right? Poverty already strips poor people of their dignity. So the moment we realize that not everybody in society can be rich, it will give us a different outlook around life. People deserve opportunities to live better lives, but the truth is not everybody would be rich. And so the way we treat people around us should not be determined by how much money they have or how much influence they have. Those days in the communities where we come from, the people who used to have the loudest voices or the influence in the room, it used to be the elders, in quotes, people who had lived for long, who were wise, But these days, they will say if you don't have money, you don't have a voice. And that's why people would go and get money any which way, and then they come and be influential in society. People don't allow a poor person speak in public gathering. You go to a church or you go to the mosque, the people who sit in front are the wealthiest or the most influential. The poor people sometimes not even they are not even allowed into the main auditorium. They make them sit in the annexes of the main auditorium. So the way we treat the poor or the weakest among us, that whole orientation needs to change. What we give value to as a society in Nigeria equally needs to change. And until we begin to do that, there's not much that would change. I know of some communities in Oyo State where young boys have decided not to go to school again. They want to do yahoo yahoo like the professor had said. In fact, in Edo State, there are some families now, instead of sending their young boys to school, they send them to places where they call HQ or headquarters, where people are now grooming young boys to do yahoo yahoo from a very tender age. So instead of people sending their kids to school, they send their kids to those places to go and learn it from a very tender age, so that those kids can now bring money back home. These days, young girls would bring money back home. Their parents do not ask them where they get it from. So all these are value reorientation that needs to happen at the level of the family unit. And then we hope that as more families begin to reorientate themselves, begin to go back to those values that helped us develop as a society, that collectively as a country we will begin to change.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, let's go to American Center Abuja. American Center Abuja, over to you. Please ask your question.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Marvelous Monday. I'm with Citizens Javel. One of the speakers, Mr. Iniobong Usen, while he was speaking, mentioned one of our products, Produce AI, designed to enhance access to justice, thereby ensuring that any corruption that we are suffering does not hinder the citizens' access to justice. And this brings me to my question, because over time I have noticed that although we know that corruption is a ill in our society and it's a serious problem, but people seem to have resigned to the fate that we have to live with corruption and there's nothing we can do about it. My question is, how do we rekindle this hope? How do we make people join the fight against corruption? Because if we are going to eradicate corruption from our society, it is not something that has to be done in isolation by just some set of persons. It is something that has to, involve everybody. It has to be a collective effort. For instance, the professor has mentioned the fact that we can fight corruption, but how do we mobilize, bring everybody into the fight? Because this is something that we have to do collectively. That is my question.
So do you want to take the question?
Okay, yeah. So I believe the way to continue to recruit people in this fight against corruption is to continue to amplify the cost. Because Nigerians are not able to draw the line between corruption and service delivery. So if somebody gets on a road and the tire of the vehicle that the person is sitting in, the public transport, bursts, the person doesn't understand that is because the road safety that was supposed to stop that driver from transporting that vehicle that was not roadworthy took 1,000 or 2,000 naira and allowed that person to continue to drive that bus. That's what led to that tire busting, you know, at top speed. The person doesn't understand that his wife that died during labor is as a result of the fact that the doctors that should have been paid but that went on strike, or the doctor that should have been on duty but has decided to japa, in quotes, and then there was no experienced personnel to handle that complication, is a cost of corruption. That's why they do not feel that they have a very critical role to play in fighting against this corruption. So the more we amplify the cost of corruption and how that affects our everyday lives, I believe the more people would, you know, begin to see the picture more and find roles to play in collectively addressing it.
What Usen has said, in this fight against corruption, how can we play our role? You see, I talked about the youths. I'm mentioning the youths because they are the ones that really, my generation, they are the ones we look up to now. Because I think they have a role, a huge role to play, the youths, okay? And that is why they can start by, I've talked about content creators, social media influencers, okay? That is one avenue whereby we can begin to fight corruption. For example, there are some of these influencers, people do not even believe in the judiciary again. They go to these social media influencers to report their issues. And those ones amplify it. And we get to hear about it. Some injustices that somebody is experiencing. Instead of going to the courts, you rather go to the media and they project it. Why is that? One, how many people can afford the cost of litigation? Many people cannot. Most people that have their cases in court, they no longer are interested in going to court. They prefer to settle out of court because they cannot meet the demands of litigation. And you know, when somebody suffers injustice and goes to the social media, before you know it has gone viral. Everybody gets to hear about it. Now it is the people that determine, you know, public opinion. They judge the case as it were. Okay, they judge. So we now get this is what we refer to as trial by the media. Media trial is not really a good thing, but it brings up the case to the fore. People get to hear about it. Okay, yes. And that is one aspect that the youth, when you have these content creators, skit makers, when they begin to come up with content that project the significance, the importance of education, they talk about the importance of fighting corruption, you know, people watch it on WhatsApp, all those videos. So if they begin to come up with content that talk more about how we can fight corruption, it will go a long way. You talk about fighting corruption in vernacular, in native languages. You know, there are some people who do not bother about television, but they listen to the radio, no matter how small that radio is. It transmits information. So they listen to radio 24/7. It's always with them. So we can also fight corruption, talk about ways of fighting corruption through this medium, radios, jingles, all of those are ways to fight corruption. And people watch it, people listen, it will send that message across. When you come up with a short video to show the disadvantage in fighting, in enriching yourself, you know, through corrupt means. It doesn't have to be bogus. There are grand ways of corrupting yourselves, and there are petty ones, little ones, petty, small ones like that. The media plays a huge role. Indeed, in fighting corruption, the media has a huge role to play. It has a huge role to play, okay? Social media influencers and all of that. That will help in the fight.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much. Aita, please, can you check if we have questions on Facebook? Meanwhile, let us take this question. This question is meant for you, Prof. How do we deal with the issues of judiciary enhancing corruption? I mean, both the bench and the bar. They are now in your territory.
Okay. Well, the judiciary, bar and bench, they have different roles in fighting corruption. For the bar, that is lawyers who go to courts and all of that, we have our body, the NBA. The NBA has zero tolerance for corruption. They do. And that is why even our president, Alpha Mosigwe, he talks against it. He is past and present presidents of the NBA. They have always decried corruption. Always. And anybody that is found, and that is why we have the legal practitioners disciplinary committee. You see the way they debar lawyers for sharp practices. Zero tolerance is what the bar has for corruption, unless a report is not made. But once an issue is reported, a client reports a lawyer, you know, for diverting his monies or something, it's a big issue. So I would say that the bar is always fighting corruption. For the bench, the judges, you see, they fight corruption in their own way, in the sense that we may not understand it. The lay people will not understand it. But the judges are bound by the facts as they are before them. Some people do not know how to marshal out their arguments in courts. They don't know how to marshal out their cases. And the judge will not descend to the arena. The judge will not tell you, this is how you should go about it, this is what you should say, this is what you should not say. No. The judge is going to go by the facts as it is, the evidence, the facts before him or her. And that is why when the judge goes by that and judgment is given, people will say, the judge has been bribed. The judge has, it is not so. It's not so. If the person does not come up with good, does not make out his own case, the judge cannot know. So that is where we make this error. That's where the misconception is. There's no judge that we want to just give judgment. They say, the judge has been bribed. I don't want to believe that. Not because I'm in the profession, not because I'm in the legal profession, but it's because of what I know for a fact. Because I'm also into practice. Okay, so if you do not, the judge is not is not clairvoyant to know what your thoughts are. You have to bring it, lay it bare. And that is why the symbol of justice is blindfolded. Now they say, no, they have removed the blindfold. No, it is still blind. The Lady Justice is still, Lady Justicia is still blindfolded. Till tomorrow, as long as you do not marshal out your arguments very well in courts, there's no judge that can help you at all. So people don't understand this, and it's unfortunate, really. It's unfortunate that we're not getting it right. But someday we'll see that the judiciary honestly fights corruption. They do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, there's another question from American Center, which says, in what ways can we deal with the smallest unit of corruption, such as jumping queues, nepotism, avoiding doing what is right as expected? Let's allow Sain to respond to that. I think he's already excited about this question.
I mean, he spoke to, this question speaks to, I mean, the way Yuan in his book, China's Gilded Age, defined corruption, or, as case may be. So he split it into 4 different parts. Petty theft, the one that happened, I mean, you steal 1,000 naira there, 2,000, 10,000 naira. Grand theft, that's the one you steal in millions. And of course, you don't expect the average ordinary man to have access to steal millions. Then speed money, and then access money. Across those 4 different forms or types of corruption, citizens, private businesses, government, participate in, at least one of those types of corruption. Meaning that, like I had said earlier, we all have contributed to the Nigeria that we are all living in today. So we have to self-cleanse. It should start from within. That value around contentment that a lot of us grew up with, it doesn't exist anymore. People want to live above their means. People don't want to work for long to be able to make a lot of money. I want to be able to drive a Mercedes-Benz GLE 450 at the age of 22. When somebody who has worked in the civil service for 35 years cannot buy a car that is 2010 or older, or a professor in the university, can even barely buy a home for him or herself. So we need to go back to those values that a lot of us grew up with and cleanse from within. There are a lot of things that people acquire that they do not need. In fact, somebody used to tell me that if you have clothes in your wardrobe that you have not worn for 6 months, it doesn't belong to you anymore. Give it out. So I think if we take that approach to everything about life, that there are a lot of things that you own or you desire that you simply do not need, you would see that a lot of the things that you seek to acquire are things that you definitely do not need and can do without.
Thank you so much for sharing that. All right. Sama, do you have any question for us, especially on Facebook?
There is none. There's none on Facebook. There's no question for Facebook.
All right, thank you, sir. Prof, is there any last word you want to share?
Yeah, sorry, Dan, there is one more question on the chat box.
Please go ahead and read it out.
So the question is, how do we reduce examination malpractices as a corruption issue in educational institutions? Say, for instance, private schools that does not get involved in sharp practices usually do not get enrollments in large quantities, and so bad so that that school owned by religious houses now bribe vigilators to aid corrupt practices. How do we curb this?
Prof, that is your question.
I need to use the
Okay.
restroom.
Yes. So
Maybe
when you talk about corruption in the education sector, we need to get our facts straight. It will not be right to work on assumptions. Okay, it will not be right to work on assumptions because those assumptions, those presumptions, they are rebuttable. Okay, when you do not have the facts with you and you're just making some assertions, it will not be too correct. In the sense that I'm saying this because to say that People write exams in private institutions, and they are not, all of those things that you said, it will not be too correct. There's no distinction between the curriculum or the way we do things in private universities and in federal institutions, federal universities or state universities. It's all the same way. Issue of examination misconduct. Once there's an issue of examination misconduct, it has to be investigated. There are procedures. The university, the tertiary institution is still one area where due process is seriously upheld. In terms of examinations, in terms of promotion, even for lecturers, nobody just looks at the file and just gives you promotion just like that. You are promoted as at when due and on merit. As we say in the education sector, publish or perish. If you're expected to go from one level to another, there's a requirement, number of publications, maybe from lecturer 1, lecturer 2 to lecturer 1. If you're expected to publish, to present 7 publications, they want to see it. And there are procedures from the departmental level to the faculty level to the AP&C, promotion and confirmation. So you must go through those hurdles. You can't jump it. The same with examination issues. If there is a case of examination misconduct, there are procedures. At the departmental level, the students will have to face the committee, examination malpractice misconduct committee at the departmental level. If at the departmental level that student is found culpable, you have not been able to convince them that you did not involve yourself in misconduct, then at the department, they will move it to the faculty level. If at the faculty level, they are not convinced, they are certain, they have proved beyond reasonable doubt that you actually were involved in examination misconduct, it will now go to the Senate disciplinary committee. So there are procedures, okay? So when you talk about corruption in tertiary institutions, I find that very difficult to believe. Because if there's corruption in tertiary institutions, lecturers and ASU will not be going on strike every, and go on long strikes that affect students. They'll not go on strike. Everybody will be smiling and laughing, okay? But when you see lecturers, we are the ones, we're the formators. We produce senators, we produce House of Rep members, we produce ministers and all of that. However, somehow they earn more than us. They earn more than their lecturers. Okay, their lives are better. And that is why people even begin to wonder, what is in this lecturing? We are lecturers. If you want to be a lecturer, if you want to make money, don't go into lecturing. If you want to make money, don't just go into the tertiary education at all, into the educational sector altogether. Okay, because that's nowhere to make money. There's no money there. It is service. It is that you have a passion. Okay, you want to disseminate information. You want to share the knowledge that you have. That is why we're into lecturing. That you want to impart on students, on people. That is the way we change the society in our own way. Okay, so for corruption in the educational sector, it's almost negligible. It is. I don't agree. I will not agree with you that there's corruption at that level. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, any question from anywhere that we've not taken?
We're done.
All right, let's put our hands together for our speakers for today. Meanwhile, I will call on Samuel Eitayo to wrap up the event and also thank our speakers. Eitayo there?
Thank you very much, Samuel. Daniel? and all the colleagues who have supported this event. I most especially thank our speakers for today. I will start with Professor Benedicta Daudu, Professor of Law, University of Abuja, for finding time to come on this program. We've indeed benefited a lot from your wealth of experience, from the data you've shared, and we really, really appreciate you, ma'am. We also would like to thank Iniobong Usen, the lead for the BudgIT. Thank you very much. In spite of being under the weather, you still found time to come. We're indeed very, very grateful. I must also thank everyone who have taken time to come and join us on this all-important discussion, United Against Corruption, Building a Brighter Future Together. We truly appreciate you and looking forward that when we call you again, you'll be able to join us. But let me say this before I let you go. This is a fight, as our speakers have said, that we cannot, no single entity can fight alone. The government cannot do it alone. No one, no person, no institution can do it alone. And that's why it's important for us to be united. You'll find I've seen cases where someone will stand to correct a very, very clear injustice, corruption, and people around will not support. And once you have all these other elements gathered together, united against the person, at the end of the day, the person will be punished. I've witnessed several years ago where somebody was trying to correct the law enforcement in collecting money on the road. You cannot believe it. The young man was singled out. Everybody in the vehicle wouldn't talk. And at the end of the day, they detained the guy, put the guy in the cell. And it only took some of us, I think about 48 hours to be able to get the guy out, just for speaking up. So I want to leave us with this challenge. We can only reduce getting to the point of eradicating corruption if we unite together. And with this, I want to thank you once again for coming and hoping to see you in our next program. Have a wonderful day and bye-bye to everyone. Bye, everyone.